Hello, doctor.
Hello. How are you?
Thank God, just back from Palm Desert.
Oh, enjoy it. Hopefully you had a fun time.
Yeah, my parents are out there, so we just went for
Oh.
a long weekend at Shabbos.
Shabbos and time to spend with them. That's good. Very good. This time gets a little crazy because I also try to make it to shul. So it depends how we're doing what they're doing. So we do the best we can.
What can you do?
Yep.
How the veterans doing this week?
You know, I'm always very grateful that I get to be there and work with them. It's interesting. I find that the care that they receive in terms of the quality of available equipment and things is great, but the ancillary support is crazy. Just terrible, Kent. Terrible.
What do you mean? You mean rehab? What do you mean?
No. I mean, like the people that are supposed to do scheduling, the people that are supposed to be doing all of the managing aspect of care so that we can be more efficient. They are, they're lifetime hospital employees. I mean, government employees, and they have very little. Sorry, Ken, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
They have very little incentive.
Yeah, almost zero incentive, and you can't get them fired if you complain. I've had situations where I've had issues with some secretary on one of the floors where they completely mismanaged orders and totally ignored orders. I mean, nowadays we do it, but Ken was saying it's getting like that more and more, even in general medicine, in general community, where if you don't have contacts and people that to access, it's challenging. And the other thing that's interesting is not as many Jewish doctors, because if you think back, I mean, we always had a repertoire just of different physicians within the shul. I mean,
yeah. Now they're going to Wall Street. Now the
now
kids go
they're
to Wall Street.
Yep.
Now they're going into drug rehab.
That's true. Owning them.
Ken, that's bad.
That's the truth.
It is. It's true.
I lived through the era when people stopped becoming doctors and went on to Wall Street. Now people don't go to college.
You're right.
All right, let's
What do they
start.
do without a college degree?
Gamble? I don't know.
What kind of
I
job
don't
do
know.
they
I don't
get?
want to talk about that. Whatever they do, they do.
Or what kind of job do they get without a college degree? They just go into some kind of business?
I think a lot of these guys they go into what they call finding deals. So they either
Polo?
go into real estate or they go into hard money lending or drug rehab.
I know, but you have to have money to do all of those things. You can't just start up from nothing. Right, Kenny?
I hear you.
But I understand if somebody has money, wants to invest in those kind of projects. But if you're a young guy, you get hired by someone in that line of work to be a worker there.
Ernie, it's a different world than from when you and I went to school.
No, I understand.
I mean, I just think there's a reason why you don't see that many Jewish kids going into medicine, and you see tons of Indians, Persians, and it's almost like there's certain ethnicities that are going in and the exclusion of everybody else.
And the Far East.
Yeah.
Asians.
Yeah.
Well, because Kenny, their parents are pushing them in that direction. They give them SAT preps when they're 3 years old. It's just like our parents, the Holocaust survivor generation, wanted their kids to be educated because they knew that was a way to succeed.
Yep. But I also think that there's other factors, but let's learn.
Yeah.
We can discuss it later.
We're on Nun Vav Amud Aleph. So Rami Bar Cham, that's 56. We're talking about a Nazir who became Tamei B'Safek, and there was a question whether he was a Tsaras B'Safek. So, Oichel B'Kodshim La'achar Shishim Yom. Remember, we talked about that it's somebody with Tsaras has to undergo at least 2 shavings with 30-day hair growth. So he cannot eat kachim until after 60 days. Because because of Safek, he has to go through another sort of 60-day process before he can go out of his Nazirus completely to go to a funeral or drink wine. And Vitani Allah B'Medvar Bezirus Nuetes. These cases are 30-day Nazirus. Avo B'Nazirus Bashana, let's say he declared himself a Nazir for a year. Then he could only eat, does double that. Just like we said, he can only eat kochim after 60 days because he has to go through 2 cycles. So oichel b'kochim lachar shtei shanim, v'shoy sayanim v'tam l'meis lachar arba shanim. He would not be able to drink wine and go to a funeral after 4 years. Now, so, but if we were discussing whether or not he can count the days of the tsaras, you have to count. Can he count some of his Nazirus days as that? If so, tizgilei b'sholosh or shloshim yom. He would only have to wait 3 years and 30 days because some of that period of time would be considered part of his Nazirus. V'od mosiv Ravashi. Ravashi asks another question. Fine. The time that a person is tamei, you can't count for the Nazirus. What about Yemei Chilut? That's Tumas Meis. So a person's a Nazir, on day 15, he goes to a funeral, he's tamei for 7 days. That 7 days is after he goes through his tahara process, we said he can pick up the count from the beginning, from day 15. If it was tsaras. Now, no, you made tumah, so that the days that he was tamei don't count. But what about when you have a rash? A Kohen would come and inspect it. Was it white? Did it have a hair in it? He might put you in quarantine for a week or 2, and then he would come back and inspect it. He comes back and inspects it and say, yes, this is muchlat as a tsaras. So now you're at tsaras, and you have to go out of the machaneh until the rash heals. Then once it heals, the Kohen comes and shaves you. You have to count 7 clean days, and he shaves you again. Now that period of time that he's been declared a tsaras muchlat, how do we know that those days also do not count as part of his Nazirus? Dinu, it's a kal v'chomer from logic. You made tuma megalechu maybe korban. When a person becomes tamei through tumas meis, he has to take a haircut and brings korbanos. V'mechluto, a tsaras, a person who's declared tsaras, also at the end of his tsaras, megalechu maybe korban. Ma'yu made tumaso in onlom namin. Just like we saw that the days that he was tamei meis, he cannot count those as his Nazirus days. Afi mechluto ein olam namin. More says, lo, maybe that kal v'chomer doesn't work, or that logic doesn't work. There's a difference between tumas meis and tumas tsaras. If a person was a 30-day nazir, and on day 15 he became Tomei, it wipes away the whole first 15 days. And then after the Parah Aduma on the 3rd and 7th day, and bringing his korbanos as a Nazir who was Tomei, he has to start a new 30-day count. We've learned the last few days that the tsaras problem does not wipe away the prior 15 days. Once he's tar, he can pick up the count from day 16. The Gemara says, Amr kava chomer hu. I'll give you another kava chomer. Uma nazir bekever. We've talked about a nazir who's in a cemetery and he accepts Nazirus in a cemetery. Now, Shesaro roilis kalachas Nazirus. His hair is eventually going to be cut when he finishes Nazirus. But the days that he was Tomei, ein onolom in a minyan. Yemei chiluto she'ein sar roilis kalachas Nazirus. A tsaras person is going to have his hair cut before he finishes Nazirus, right? We learned he gets his hair cut, then he counts 7 clean days, gets his hair cut again, and then he needs 30 days of hair growth as a new Nazir. So that hair that was on his head when he was tsaras is not the same hair that's going to be roy for shaving. So if Tuma ain't oil lomna minyan, then certainly the mechluto lo kol sheken should not be oil lomna minyan. Okay, the Gemara seems to accept that. The ainli eli mechluto. You made svarim in ayin. So we talked about the process. You get a rash. The coin looks at it. If it's questionable, he puts you in what's called hezger, quarantine. You might be there for a week or 2 or 3. He'll come every week to check it. The rash will declare itself. It'll turn a certain color, or it'll have a hair growing out of it, which are either simone tahara or simone tuma. At some point, the coin will say, this is tohor. You're not at tsaras. You don't have to lead the machaneh, and you don't have tumas tsaras. Or he'll see a sign, no, this is real tsaras. So he calls you now a tsaras muchlet. Now you have to leave the machaneh. And you have to stay out of the machaneh until the rash heals.
What is that? What is he? Can he be metame while he's a muchlet? Can the Masorah?
No, he's metame things, but not other people. We went through this already. He can metame
Okay.
but not other people.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Just like a tumas mace cannot be metame. Somebody who's tumas mace, he also can't be metame other people.
Yeah.
If you have relations with a nida, so a boil nida becomes tame. Okay. And a zav who has a seminal emission for 3 days in a row, he becomes tame. What he touches becomes tame.
Kayla, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me go back. So we talked about hezger, which is quarantine. Then we talked about he's now declared a muchlet. So, that he's clearly tame in that period of time. Then he comes and inspects the tsaras and he says it's healed. So he shaves the hair as well as the hair on his body. Then they count 7 days. That's Yemei Sifro. Then he comes and gives him another haircut. And then he brings korbanos on day 8. And then to resume the Nazirus, he has to start 30 new days, because you can't complete Nazirus without 30-day hair growth. So the Gemara wants to know the Yemei Sfaro, the 7 days after he was shaved the first time, when he's in the process of being matar from Tumas Tsaras, minayin, that they also don't count for Nazirus. Vidinu. And it's a svara. Mayim echluta tonti glachas. So we talked about after the days that you were a muchlet, when he comes and inspects you, and he sees that you're clean, you have to take a haircut. After you made svaro, at the end of the 7 days of clean days, we take a second haircut. So both the Yemei Cholut and the Yemei Sfiri take a haircut at the end. So now the Gemara is going to make its connection. Umay Yemei Chluto ein olam naminyan, af Yemei Sfaro would not be counted. Okay. The Gemara seems to accept that. Yachol af Yemei Hezgero Kain. Remember, the first step in the process was being a Metzora Musger, being put in quarantine until the Kohen determines what your status is. Is your rash a true tsaras rash or not? And that could be 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It depends. So those days can add up. So the Gemara wants to know, maybe those days can count for his Nezirus. Ve hadin noise. And it's logical. Chalot metami mishkav Moshe. A tsaras, if he sits on a couch, so it will metame things that sit on the couch with him, other kalim, oichel. The tumah of both of them is the same. So we've already determined that a Metzora Muchlet, those days don't count. So maybe the days of quarantine should not count for the Nazirs. Amrit lo. The Gemara rejects that. At the end of being a Metzora Muchlet, you have to be shaved and you have to bring korbanos. That may be the reason why those days can't be counted as Nazirs. At the end of your quarantine, you don't have to take a haircut, you don't have to bring korbanos. So maybe the Yemei Hezger can count for your Naziris. Mikan Amru Yemei Svaro v'Yemei Gemaro ein olam namin. However, the Gemara learned from other places that the days that you were Musger, so Rav Chisda held that the days of Hezger could not count, but we don't paskin like Rav Chisda. We paskin that the days that you were in quarantine is oil and low. Similarly, Yemei Azava Vezger Shematzore Elo oil and low. If in the middle of a Naziris, a man has a seminally mission either 3 times in 1 day or 3 days in a row, or a woman during her 11 days of Zivus has bleeding 3 days in a row and she's a Zava Gdola, she has to count 7 days of Tumah until she's clean. Those days can be counted as Naziris. Ve'ez Gershom Atzara. Are ein olalo. So Ktani mi aslo im amrit b'mei Tumah shekem mevatel ben asakoidmin. So Tumas Mace is mevatel the prior days, Tomer Mechiluto, which seems to imply that they're not mevatel. B'mai. As if it's a 30-day Nazir, certainly it's going to be mevatel because you got to start a new 30-day count. So whatever days you counted within the 30 days are going to go away. Habin Gidol Seir. Elalav Nazir Smarut. We're talking about a 100-day Naziris. Uketani Shena Olam Naminyan. So now comes out that a Metzora Muchlet those days don't count. Alma lo salkinan lei. They don't count the Yemei Chluto even for a Yemei, even for a long Nazirus, which is not like Rav Chizda. Shema Minon, Rav Chizda is pushed away, and that's how we pass. Mishnah. Am Rabbi Eliezer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua. And this is important din. Called Tumah and Ameis Shenazir Megaleach Alea. We learned in the last two Mishnayos those types of tumah that a nazir has to take a haircut for. Those are deraisa dikit tumas. Then we learned rabbinic tumas, like if you went to Chutz La'aretz, weaker tumas, he has to take a haircut, but no korbanos. And no, he doesn't take a haircut. He has to count 7 days and get paraduma 3 and 7 days, but it doesn't ruin his Nazirus. But the tumas that a Nazir takes a haircut for, chayav al bias mikdash. There is a din that if you're Tameh and you walk into the precincts of the Beis HaMikdash, you get kares. If you do it b'shogeg, you bring a chatas. But the tumah that will bring you a chatas or kares are only those tumas that a nazir takes a haircut for. Those tumas that he doesn't take a haircut for, there's no isser of bias mikdash. Called tumah and amesha ein a nazir megalechale ein chayiv ala bias mikdash. Rab Meir lo say zu kalam and asheretz. Rab Meir says, you know what? If there are 8 shmona shrotzim, there's 8 type of creepy crawling creatures: a bat, a lizard, a rodent. There are 8 types that their carcass that can convey tumah to you. Bebeis abliya, you have to swallow them. So if you become tameh with tumas sheretz, Rabbi Kiva holds, you would be chayiv kares if you walked in the Beis HaMikdash. So he says that the cases of tumah that a nazir doesn't have to take a haircut for, but it requires him to have paraduma day 3 and day 7. So it's more stringent than tumah sheretz. Tumah sheretz is only 1 day tumah. When a nazir is exposed to, we said the goylel, the doifek, the top of a grave. So he doesn't take a haircut for that, but he needs paraduma 3rd and 7th day. So Rab Meir says to the Tanakama, it can't be worse than a sheretz. I mean, it shouldn't be more lenient than a sheretz. If you get kares for a sheretz, you should get kares for that as well. We don't paskin like Rab Meir. We paskin like the Tanakama. That if you have the weaker type of tumah that you don't take a haircut for, you would not get kares. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua Gomar law. You notice the Mishnah had 2 names. Amar Rabbi Eliezer Mishum Rabbi Yeshua. The Gemara says Vamishum Rabbi Yeshua Bar Mamel Gomar law. The Shalshelet, the Masorah of the teaching, came down with 3 names, not just 2 names. The Tanya Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Kishalachti ladraskia motzasid Rabbi Yeshua ben Peter, Rosh, Shaya Yoshev v'dalef Rab Meir, Halacha. Kol tumah min hameis, shanazir megalech alea, chayav na lemishum bias migdash. V'chol tumah min hameis she'ein hanazir megalech alea, ein chayav na lemishum bias migdash. The halacha that we learn in our Mishnah, Amar lo, and so Rab Meir responded, Al tezu kala misheretz. It shouldn't be more lenient than a sheretz. Amarti lo, Lumatabaki Rabbi Yoshua bar Mamu? Are you an expert? Like in the halachas of Rabbi Yoshua bar Mamu, Amrli Hain? He said yes. Kacharmerli Rabbi Yoshua bar Mamu mishum Rabbi Yoshua. Choltumim min ameis shanazir megalech lechayiv aleh mishum bias mikdash. Choltumim min ameis she'ein nazir megalech le'ein chayiv aleh mishum bias mikdash. Avi. So you see, it isn't Rabbi Eliezer mishum Rabbi Yoshua. It's Rabbi Eliezer mishum Rabbi Yoshua bar Mamu who said it to Rabbi Yoshua. Right? Mishum Rabbi Yoshua bar Mamu gamerlo. So we're going to be taught a new rule. Amru shmamina. Kol shmaitza de misamr v'veit tlasa. Any dvar halacha that came down the Masorah with three names, kadmoy uvasraya minan mitzia lo minan. We mentioned the first person and the last person, but not the middle person. It's like in the game of telephone, and everyone tells the person sitting next to him. All we care about is the first person who started the message and the last person who receives it. Amr Nachum Alavler, Nachum the scribe, Kach Mikublani Merabi Miyasha, Shekibel Me Abba, he received it from his father. Shekibel Menazugos, who received the halacha from the pairs, like Hillel and Shammai, and Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Sreda, Venitai Har Bailey, Yudah ben Tabayin, Shimon ben Shetach, Shmai vav Talyoin. This in Pirkei Avos, the Masorah after Shimon HaTzadik, Shekiblu Minan Neviim, who received from the prophets, Halach Lamosh Mesinai, Bazoireya Sheves v'chardal b'shnayim u'shlosh makamos. If a person planted mustard and another type of seed in 2 or 3 different places in a field, and they all grow 3 different areas, it's not considered one field, it's considered 3 different fields. And you have to leave the corner of each of the fields. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu had Talmidim, Yoshua, then Yoshua taught Kalev, who gave it over to the Nevi'im. How come they weren't mentioned? Shema Mina, this rule, that you mentioned the first and the last. Rabbi Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva. Danti Lifnei Rabbi Eliezer. I produced this discussion from Rabbi Eliezer. My metzim kiso'oira. The bone, a bone the size of a barley bean, is eina metame adam ba'ohel. It will metame you if you touch it, but it doesn't have tumas oil if you're in the same room with it. Hanazir megaleacha magov amaso. If a nazir carries or touches a bone the size of a barley bean, the nazir has to take a haircut.
Alan, can you, Alan?
Revi'as dam, shu metame adam ba'oel. If you walk into the room and there's revi'as dam from a corpse, you have to misoyim. I would think that if a nazir touched or carried the revi'as dam, he should take a haircut. Omar Lis, Rabbi Eliezer said, Maze Akiva, Ein danin kan mikal v'chomer. You can't learn new halachas here with a kal v'chomer. Now, why not? We learn everywhere else with a kal v'chomer. Ucheshabati v'irtzesi dvarim of Rabbi Yeshua Amar liyofa amart elakain amru halacha. Rabbi Yeshua told Rabbi Akiva, you said correct, logically, but this was the halacha that was received in the Masorah, that a Nazir who touches or carries Revi'as Dam does not have to take a haircut. It's only if he's in Tumas oil with Revi'as Dam. And even though you have a Kal V'chomer to seem to reject that, we can't reject it because we received it b'halach. I'm just going to finish the perek. Nun Zayin and Aleph. Iboiluhu. Which one is the halacha? Etzem kisa'oira. That if a Nazir touches or carries a bone the size of an etzem, that he has to take a haircut. And the halacha of Revi'as Dam. And Rabbi Kiva wanted to learn Revi'as Dam through a Kal V'chomer. Bein Dan in Kal V'chomer me'alacha. And we can't do it. And Revi'as Dam remains that the Nazir does not take a haircut. Oy Dilma, maybe Revi'as Dam is the halacha, that it's metame ba'oil. The etzem kisa'oira is a Kal V'chomer. That Nazir, maybe we do learn a Kal V'chomer there, that he's megalech on carrying or touching Revi'as Dam. But we would say, in Danin Kal V'chomer malacha, Toshma, Etzem Kisore Kalacha, Revi'as Dam Kal V'chomer, Vein Danin Kal V'chomer malacha. And therefore the halacha is one bone that is tameh, that's the size of a barley bean, is metame b'magu v'masa. And it's midin Torah. It's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. And we don't learn the same din doesn't apply to Revi'as Dam.
Well, let me ask you, what?
Hadran,
Let me
a
just
person-
finish the Hadran. Let me just finish.
Hadran alecha kohen gadol.
Hadran lecha kohen gadol, lecha kohen gadol, lecha kohen gadol.
If,
It was an
if a-
important perek.
if a person,
Very
if a
difficult.
person, if a person sees our official, our seminal admission for 3 days, so what he's matame, is it the same? He's the same thing as a Masorah?
No,
Is he
no,
betam?
no. Because there we said only you may hezger of Metzora, you can count those as part of the Nezirus days. But if
forget about the
if you're a
Nazir, stop.
muchlet,
Yeah,
if you're a muchlet or you're being soifer, the clean days, you can't count those.
okay,
But
so forget about
Zav and a
that.
Zava, you can count.
A person that sees seminal mission, he's matame kalim, he's matame kalim or same
About
thing as
carry,
a
about carry.
Bakar is matame kalim, the same thing as a Masorah. The same thing halacha is Masorah, right? So why does have a Masorah have to be isolated? Why?
Because he said Lashon Hara. So we kick
that-
him out
oh.
the Machane.
Oh, that's why. Oh, not because of
Special
Are we
stringency.
sure that's? Are we
Why
sure?
did somebody get Saras?
We don't know. We say
We
they
do,
say.
we
but
do
that's-
know. We do know.
Lashon hara.
Chazal told us. And
Lashon
that's the reason why it's Mitzvah is kicked out of the Machane.
Yeah.
Miriam was kicked out of the Machane, and we had to wait
Yeah.
for 7 days.
Okay, yeah. So that's yeah. No, but the halacha is the same as far as bivatame as a Balkari or
No, about Kerry
That's right.
doesn't bring korbanos.
doesn't
He
be co-
goes to the mikveh,
yeah.
has Erev Shemesh, and it's finished.
right.
A
That's
Zav,
right.
a Zava has to bring korbanos on day 8,
Yeah.
like a Mitzvah. But there's no shaving. Each is different.
Right,
Your lettuce is different. The Mitzvah is different. The Zav.
Right.
What they have in common is they have Tumah for 7 days. You have to keep 7 clean days, and then the 8th day you bring korbanos.
So we know
Any
chutz lama-
Tumah that comes out of your body, Yoledes, Mitzora, Zav. That's how to remember that.
Shkoyach.
So the Mitzvah is the only one that's we send out of the Machane, right? That's
Correct.
the only one of
Yeah,
any of the
No, the other
Talmud.
ones, they can't go into Machne Shechina.
Right.
Some
But
are kicked out of one Machne, some are kicked out of 2 Machne, some are kicked out of all Machnos.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Shkoyach.
Tomorrow it's